Going. Okay, everyone. So thank you and welcome to the Dean's Digital Cafe. This is our first cafe event of spring 2026. I'm William Letsu. I'm assistant professor in biological and chemical sciences, and I'm glad you're all here. We have a good crowd here in Long Island. We have a bunch of people online. We actually have some people in Manhattan too. This is our first time doing all both campuses at once. So today we're really happy to have Professor Michael Izady again to give us a Dean's Digital Cafe. So Professor Izady comes to us from Columbia University a while ago, and since then he's taught at many different places all over in the United States, in Europe, and also with the U.S. Air Force. He knows many different languages, and he's also a renowned expert on Middle East affairs. He's written a book that's in its fourth edition so far, and he's written many other field guides as well. He's gotten lots of awards, especially teaching awards, and even funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities for his work. So he's all over. He's got everything for us, and he's here today to tell us about the constitutionality of sanctuary cities and the use of horses on American territory. So Michael, please take it away. We're very excited you're here.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. This is my second time that I'm invited by Dean Moore to make a presentation, and it's always my pleasure to do so. For one thing, I'll be talking about legality and constitutionality of events that are happening recently, and that is something that it should be very helpful to people at NYIT because, well, in the past 5, 6 years, we have really stopped having a department of political science, social sciences, and so forth, reduced it in order to make NYIT more viable. Because of that, it is pretty apt to make a presentation such as this one or other ones, if it become possible, to our students to educate them on a matter that the nation is very concerned about. In fact, it seems like many of our major cities have become battleground for a topic and an issue that no one seems, at least those people I speak with at NYIT, to know exactly why is it so. What are the rights of the federal government? What are the rights of the state and the city governments? What is going on? All right. Well, that is what I'm going to talk about. However, I would like to start at the very beginning first to direct your attention to my email address at the very bottom. You're more than welcome to communicate with me directly or through Mr. Letsu. If you have any questions from now until Kingdom to Come, I would be happy to respond to you. But also, I would like to add that I'm going to talk about legality and constitutionality of these actions, but not a judgmental approach or the morality of the actions. Those are for you to decide whether or not these actions are moral or if they are, you pass your own judgments to them. No, I'm going to only discuss the legality and constitutionality of the events and leave the rest of it to you to decide how would you like to arrive at a conclusion for yourself. So on that note, I would be very happy to answer your questions in two ways. Either you wait until the end of the session and ask then, or you can actually raise your hand, and I believe Mr. Letsu will see you, and he would probably prompt me to answer that if it is a burning question. If not, just hold on to it until the end of the session. Is that okay?
That is fine. I'll look for questions and we'll let them we'll take them as either as they come or at the end of the session.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, well, the sources of controversies that we have today are the clashing of two issues, namely one that is called the sanctuary status given to people who have broken the law. This is not a new thing. We go back to the time of the Sumerians 5,000 years ago, more than 5,000 years ago. The temples were usually a sanctuary. For people who have broken the laws of the country, the state would take refuge in the temple to be protected. However, if these people have broken the laws of the religion, they would have no protection in the temple. So what it was a selective application of sanctuary since the beginning of the time. there are certain laws or rules that one institution considers it to be, well, not terribly inviolable. Like the temple saying the state laws may be broken, I give you sanctuary. Sanctuary, that is what it means. A person is running away from punishment, persecution, or whatever it may be. If the laws are just, then the one who is running away obviously has broken the just law and is committing a crime. If the law is unjust, then the person is running away to justice, presumably. So that is called sanctuary. We have that in medieval Europe, as a matter of fact, and in the early modern times in Europe, when there were wars of religion going on between Catholics and Protestants. Some Protestants would take refuge in a Protestant church, for example, in the territory which was basically Catholic, La France. And you were hoping that they would actually shelter you from being apprehended and dragged out and punished. Today in America, sanctuary applies to areas of the United States, sometimes a state, an entire state actually, sometimes a district, a township, or an actual town, a city, declares itself sanctuary for a specific group of people who have broken a specific law, not all laws. So it's not like somebody is, committed a murder and you have a sanctuary. No, it specifically is regarding people who have broken the immigration laws, namely entered the United States without permission, without going through a regular process of application, have crossed the border, coming in, and they have usually asked for asylum and are hoping that their case would be heard at some point. However, not realizing the new laws of the United States starting in 2017 does not allow you that anymore. So it's not like I'm waiting for my case to be heard, but rather you could be apprehended and deported by summarily declaring that your request for asylum is not on the solid ground. It cannot be considered. It cannot be taken to a court, and you be provided with time to present your case. So sanctuary cities are not a blanket sanctuary for all kinds of law breaking. Whether or not the law is good or bad, as I said, we are not judgmental in this presentation, is there's the legality of it. The law is there, you break it, you have broken the law, and the name for that is criminal. You have committed a crime by breaking the law. On the other hand, you have the element of armed agents. They are the ones who are supposed to enforce the law by apprehending the lawbreaker. Let's not call the person criminal, but the lawbreaker. This is their job. They are hired to do that, either by local governments, state governments, or the federal governments. These two usually do their work separate from one another. As of late, however, because of the illegal immigration, these two have converged and they have run into each other like a train crash. And they have caused a great deal of pain and anger in the entire United States. The whole question of federal agents going into cities and towns and trying to force their way into various homes, houses, jails, hospitals, schools, and whatnot in order to collect what they call the lawbreakers. While, of course, in the sanctuary areas, they would like to see this end and don't do this. Allow these people to stay around. Well, is that a possibility? Does the Constitution allow for such a thing? Or is this something that we are really fighting two battles that neither side seems to know the constitutionality of it? Because the Supreme Court, that is supposed to decide the constitutionality of all these events, it is flooded with cases. They hardly get around to even pass judgment about one or two because there are so many of them. It is not easy to make a decision. So the Supreme Court itself, it is barely make decisions every few months about one case, but there are hundreds of cases that are pending. So what I do is I'm going to present the law and the Constitution as I know it, and you be the judge or wait until the Supreme Court makes the judgment for you. All right. Here, what we have about illegal immigration. Illegal immigration should be immediately by you this be distinguished from legal immigration. There are two different coins. Legal immigration, no one has a problem with that. People go through the regular applications, and we get about 1.2 million people every year legally immigrating into United States. Legal immigration to United States has been on since the beginning of the Republic. People used to come in without anybody even asking a question. But in 1880s and 1880s, particularly and onward, immigration laws came in saying like people cannot just come in, you have to go and be processed, like the Ellis Island or whatnot. But in the 20th century, particularly after the Second World War, applications are necessary and you have to apply from where you are, not to come to America and apply here. But that leaves a loophole, namely, you cross the border asking for asylum. The United Nations, as well as, of course, the conventions at Geneva and the others, provide for asylum. Asylum is they're chasing me and I'm running into your country asking you to protect me. Basically, your entire country become a sanctuary for me. This happens. We have asylum seekers regularly who actually come to this country and they are granted asylum immediately. Why? Because the law has provided these group of people automatically get the asylum status either permanently or temporarily. Like if you're running away from Cuba, the family of our Secretary of State, Mr. Rubio, they all came from that area and they got asylum and very quickly became citizens of United States. So if you come from places like Venezuela a year ago, if you came like 5 or 6 years ago, you would be given asylum. But after that, because the government in that country started also pushing out regular criminals and mentally disturbed people, so United States decided I no longer extend automatic asylum to people who come run away from the socialism in Venezuela. But if they're running away from socialism from Cuba, that is okay. You get the asylum. So it is no longer 100%. Depends where you're coming from. These are the people who are coming and asking for asylum, although pretty much none of them qualifies as an asylum seeker. Asylum seeker is called asylee. You have to be running away from political oppression. Nothing else, not economic problem, not health issues, not overcrowding, not violence on the streets, political oppression. That's why people coming from Cuba, they say I'm coming running away from socialist oppression. Okay, well that this is a thing that goes back to the time of the Cold War. In the 1940s and 50s and 60s and onward, that people who were asking for asylum, they were usually running away from socialism in Eastern Europe and other places in East Asia and whatnot. But now these people are coming, they say, I'm here to ask for asylum, and pretty much none of them would qualify. However, American law did provide that those people who ask for asylum should be given a day in the court to prove their case, whether or not they have a case. This is not so today as I'm going to be discussing it. All right. So people who cross the border and coming in into United States before there actually was a wall and things like that, or the wall was so ridiculous, like the picture you see on the bottom, you can actually climb it up because the corrugated metal provides you with a stepping stone to actually go up and come up from the other, come down from the other side. These people that you see that are running away, and including this poor lady, the mother of two children, she's running away from a tear gas canister. She is not on the American soil. The wall that you see, if you cross that wall on the other side, would be on the American soil. We have no clue how many people have come to the wall and have returned, not being able to cross the wall because the walls are becoming more and more difficult to cross. But those who cross the wall, they are the ones who are called illegal immigrants. In United States, by 2020, we had about 10 million people who were illegal immigrants. In, Increase that, of course, by 2025, we are approximately 14 million. At the beginning of 2025, we had approximately 14 million illegal immigrants. Not legal, not legal. Do not confuse the two together. In the laws of United States, these people are called illegal aliens. I would like not to use that term because nowadays alien means someone from Mars or Jupiter. These are people who would like to emigrate, but they are doing it illegally. They haven't gone through the legal processes. All right. So it is the terminology is not to insult or disparage these individuals, but to distinguish them from legal immigrants. They are not undocumented workers. Undocumented worker is like a person who comes to the United States on a tourist visa or a student visa and starts working. You're not supposed to work. You become undocumented worker. Now, these are the people who have actually crossed the border illegally to immigrate. So illegal immigrant, it is an apt way of saying it. As I said, no disparagement is intended whatsoever. What the government is doing today, it seems kind of like a strange. Why? Because the children born to those who have entered America legally or illegally, whatever way, Constitution says if you're born here, you're a citizen. Although Constitution really doesn't say that. The Constitution requires two conditions, not one. But since the Civil War, all courts in the United States have said if you're born in America, you're American. They have never asked for the second condition. So, and we discussed that last year when I was at the Dean's Cafe, what the other condition was. If you are interested, of course, you can get a recording of it and see it. Or email me, I will send you the recording from last year when we discussed citizenship, the whole idea of citizenship. But the children of these individuals would be American, meaning 18 years from the day they were born, they will become a full-fledged Americans and have the right to bring in their parents. Once you bring in the parents, and he or she is also here, you will have much possibility to bring in your siblings as well. So why is it that to go through all this fandango to kick out people when you know they're going to come back legally? It is very strange. This was an issue that actually in 1986 led the Reagan administration. President Reagan was a Republican and the Congress was fully Democratic. Both of them together, instead of fighting each other, they worked together and they came up with what is known as the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, which actually started functioning in 1987. All it said was you have to be here for 5 years. You should not have broken laws, a major law. So if you overparked or I don't know, you did something minor, you didn't commit a felony. Okay, good. But you did break a law by coming to the country illegally, but that is overlooked in 1986 law. So if you haven't done anything else and you are here, then you have the chance within 1 year to apply for permanent residency and eventually become a citizen. However, you have to pay all the dues and also you have to pay all the back taxes. You have worked in here for 5 years, you have to pay taxes. I remember this very clearly. Why? That's when I became a citizen. By coincidence, that was the time I became a citizen myself. And of course, the IRS was asking me to pay my back taxes, which I told them I don't have a bad taxes to pay. I have paid it all the time. I have been legal. I came in as a student and I had a permission to work at that time. They needed my expertise. Okay. But I remember this moment in time, it is very clear in my mind. It worked like a charm. Over 3.2 million people, illegal people, became legal. What happened to America? Well, I have seen the children of these people because, as Mr. Letsu mentioned, I have taught people in American Air Force, and I have seen children of these families who became legal. Now they are very strong American patriots working and part of the American Air Force and other American armed services. Very much patriotic Americans, although their parents arrived here illegally, but thanks to the agreement between the president and the Congress, these people were made legal. Did we lose anything? Of course not. We gained plenty. As a matter of fact, you can see it in the composition of American armed forces. Now, about 40% of the members of the American armed forces of our Hispanic origin, most of them through legalization process. Their parents were legalized. So it is not like there's a danger facing us. Immigration is an issue by default, namely, it is basically the illegal immigration has become a point of political warfare between the two political parties in America, the Republicans and the Democrats. No one seems to really care much about the immigrants or the immigration issue at all, but rather only looking at it from the point of view and behind the glasses called politics. Party politics, that is. All right. First of all, when we say, well, America needs immigrants, 1.2 million enter the country every year legally. So it is not like we are saying we don't want immigrants, but what it is, one party says, I do not want illegal immigrants. The other one says, I would like to have illegal immigrants. Why is it? Well, first of all, it was the time of President Clinton, Democratic president, President Clinton in 1990s, 1996 to be exact, that Congress actually passed a law limiting the access by the illegal immigrants to habeas corpus, to appear in court, provide documentations, ask for witnesses and stuff. That is called habeas corpus in American legal system. All right. Habeas corpus was actually waived if you have been in the United States for less than 2 weeks or you were apprehended less than 100 miles away from the borders. So you could summarily be deported. Whatever happened to habeas corpus? Not that time anymore. And that was, of course, 1996. Push it to 2019, and under the first Trump administration, the time was extended from 2 weeks to 2 years, and the space was extended to the entire country. No matter where you are, you could be deported. And you see that today. So ICE agents are everywhere from Chicago to Los Angeles to New York to wherever capturing people because the entire country is now their domain. They can do that. The point is, have they been here less than 2 years? Because Congress has allowed for people to be apprehended without habeas corpus before 2 years is up. The thing is, the administration says, I am not really arresting normal people, but rather criminals only. Those who have committed crimes and have gone to the court, they have been convicted and they have been given the order for deportation to leave. Yes and no. Usually on the surface it is, but average people, most recently you heard a child 5 years old and another one 2 years old were apprehended. These are not exactly criminals that have appeared in a court and have been condemned. So what is going on is, first of all, during the first Trump administration, despite this that you see here, he managed to deport 45 people. It is almost cartoonish. It is as if some kind of like joke. All this hullabaloo for nothing? It is not easy to do that. That's the point. It is not easy to implement these things. Why? Because of the judges. Judges, they are federal judges. there is no limitations on spatial limitations on their power. Once they issue an injunction, it is the whole country. Supreme Court has said that. Supreme Court was asked by the current administration to limit the power of the federal judges, like someone in Oregon issues a injunction, stops the government from doing what it is doing, applies to the whole country. No, no, it should only apply to Oregon. Supreme Court has said no, it applies to the whole country because otherwise we would fragment the laws of United States. Laws in Oregon would be different from laws in Utah. No, no, one United States. So that is the thing. Judges can stop the process by issuing injunctions. So during the first Trump administration, he managed to only deport 45 people. That is kind of ridiculous. It is, all right. Supreme Court recently, well, relatively recently, at the end of 2025, 3 months ago, as a matter of fact, ordered that what Trump had issued originally, namely in 2019, that people should not have right to habeas corpus, which itself was built on what you see was done under President Clinton administration, should be waived if there is a chance, a reasonable chance for the person to fight the deportation. Reasonable chance, which is lovely. Who is to decide what is reasonable chance? The court would decide. Which court would that be? If it is a liberal court, the person would be given all the possibilities to defend himself. If it is a conservative court, the person is deported before he can say uncle, depending which kind of court the person shows up. Do not forget, the court system in America, it is kind of like half Democrat, half Republican. There are very few that are honorable enough to respect the Constitution and do the legal thing based on the Constitution rather than the party politics. Unfortunately, party politics has become the thing that the judges, I have very personally, I have lost my respect for most of these judges because they do party politics. Excuse me, what happened to Constitution? What happened to the legality? What happened to being impartial as the judges should be? Well, that's for another day to discuss, obviously. Here it is, of course, President Barack Obama, under whose administration, 8 years of administration, more people were deported than at any other time under any president. Firstly, because there were so many people coming to this country, but also president was there for 8 years. President Obama was there for 8 years, but about 3.1 million people were deported, and another 2 million left the country on their own. Why did they do that? Because if you remember, Obama administration also coincided with the Great Recession, the worst economic condition in America since the Great Depression of the 1930s. All right. But if you look at President Obama's own words in 2005, you realize that neither side seems to really entertain the idea of uh, people emigrating or coming to United States legally, I mean illegally, and without any impediment. We simply cannot allow people to pour into United States undetected, he says, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become legal immigrants in this country. Illegals basically are jumping the line from what this gentleman is saying. And probably not so, for a very good reason. The illegals are mostly looking for job, a vast majority looking for jobs in order to basically make the ends meet, and we need their jobs as well. I mean, I ordered pizza for delivery. The person who delivers it struggles with English. It is very clear. I look at the person. I would be a fool to assume that this person is not one of these 14 million illegal immigrants to work. That is what exactly led Ronald Reagan and Congress to legalize these people and make America for 20 years to breathe easy that I don't have the problem with illegal immigrants. That those who have not committed a crime who would be deported, the rest of them are given residency to stay in the United States. Sanctuary cities now provide a place for these people to stay. Why? Sanctuary, it is not illegal. Constitution says when the federal laws are on the paper, they will be implemented, they will be executed. However, the Constitution doesn't say you local people have to cooperate with it. There is no such a thing in Constitution. So the sanctuary city says we do not cooperate with the ICE or the federal government agents to hand over the illegal immigrants. If you want them, come and get them yourself. They have every right to do that. The cities and the states are not required by the Constitution to cooperate with the federal law enforcement, but they're also not allowed to oppose federal law enforcement. You can use your language to say we do not like it or demonstrate. But if you stop federal agents from doing their work, it changes from legality to illegality. What you are doing, you are illegally preventing federal agents doing their jobs. If it is disorganized, people are, doing it by themselves, that is spontaneously. Okay, like these people, look at them, they're carrying signs, all right? Uh, Immigrants make America great, all right? Or those who are against them. These are citizens exercising their right to peacefully demonstrate, and they do that. What if they start actually using violence against the agents? The agents would return violence with violence. They have the right to do that. They are federal agents. But can they kill somebody? Well, recently they killed two people, actually, which is horrible. These are citizens, naturally. But did these individuals actually threaten or physically harm the federal agents? The law is very clear about that. Do whatever you do peacefully, demonstrate. You can use bad vocabulary if you want to, but do not use physical violence. Physical violence automatically allows for federal agents to also use physical violence on you. And if you use more of them, they can do better than that. The agents will ask the administration to send in the paramilitary, namely, as we're going to be seeing it momentarily, the National Guard. If National Guard cannot do it, the regular military would be sent in, as if this is a foreign country, step by step. And you're going to be seeing that. Again, do not confuse that with this. These are legal immigrants. As you see, they are taking the oath of loyalty to the Constitution of the United States and becoming citizens. They are waving the flag. These are for and against illegal immigration. Unfortunately, neither one of them knows the difference. You see here, it says immigrants make America great. Of course they do. Americans are basically a nation of immigrants. What else could it be? Obviously. All right. Uh, the states have many rights under the Constitution, including the right of sanctuary. Cities do that too in the states. This is the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. It is actually the 10th Amendment. It is in the Constitution. The power not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, it reads, nor prohibited by it to the states. Those powers are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. Constitution does not give the federal government the right to force the states to enforce federal laws. Therefore, that right belongs to the states. The state says, I'm not going to cooperate. The cities say, I'm not cooperating. And the people say, I'm not cooperating. Federal government does not have the right to force people or the states or the city or the locality to cooperate in enforcing federal laws. Constitution does not give it to them. The 10th Amendment is very clear. And this is not, some law made by Congress. This is actually in the Constitution itself. So the states are using that and the sanctuary cities using that. Namely, they have the right and they do that, all right? The outcome is a very, very bad hyperbole, a bad picture painted by two different parties. On one hand, you have this one. Democrats painting a picture of illegal immigrants as being wonderful for United States, Republicans painting a picture of they are demons in United States, and the immigrant in the middle is neither this nor that. They're average people like you and me. They are capable of good things, they're capable of bad things, naturally. But it is the total confusion, even in the media, between legal and illegal immigrants. All right. Amnesty that was granted to the illegal immigrants in 1986, it could any day could be implemented again today. If Congress and President will cooperate with each other, unfortunately, they're at each other's throat instead of cooperating with each other naturally. All right. The opponents of legalization of illegal immigrants, they believe that actually the sanctuary cities should cooperate with enforcing the federal laws because, after all, federal laws are there to protect them as well. Federal law is there to protect everybody in the United States. The proponent of it, of course, say what I just said, that it's not the duty of local and state governments to enforce that. If you are a neutral in the middle, all right, uh, you would realize that enforcing the immigration laws by the local police, it is not clear is a constitutional duty of the local police. In fact, I personally believe it is not. It is not. Federal agents, yes, but not the local. Locals are obeying the local laws. If you look at United States, for example, the map in the background, it is from long ago, 2018. I couldn't find a modern map, but I put the numbers for you in both of them. Look at the very top, you have the number of immigrants, legal immigrants in America. Nearly 52 million Americans are actually of immigrant backgrounds. That is, either they themselves recently or a while ago, like myself, immigrated to the United States. These are the people who have become naturalized. They have gotten citizenship in America. That's a lot of people. That is 15.4% of the entire population of the United States. If you do not know, that is more than the number of African Americans. Actually, there are more immigrants than there are African Americans in this country. So you look around and you say an African American, tell your brain this is equal to an immigrant. That often you would see an immigrant, all right? And they are 19% of the labor, meaning they're working more than the numbers would actually show you. That is, they're hardworking individuals. It is true. You may want, oh, no, no, they hang around and they take advantage of I don't know, the welfare and stuff. One or two may be, but we can look at the figures. That is, if there are only 14% of 15.4% of the people of the country that are immigrants, and there are 19% of the workers, that implies on average they work more than an average American. Why? They came here for that purpose. All right. So today in 2026, end of 2025, 12 states and the DC added to that, all right, are sanctuaries. Entire states like California, for example, Oregon and Washington, Colorado, New Mexico, the entire place is a sanctuary, all right? But there are also areas that you have here that they are Republican run territories. In these Republican run territories, you can have a sanctuary county or a sanctuary city, meaning the rest are like Louisiana, for example. The state is, of course, Republican. So what it is, New Orleans declared itself to be a sanctuary city. That is, I am in a state controlled by Republicans, but the city is not. So I declare myself sanctuary. So you can have all three possibilities: the state, county, or a city. So in case of California, not the whole state is, you don't need to even like this declare your city as a sanctuary. The whole place is. Mind you, I would like to mention something to you. Why is it that the Democrats want illegal immigrants to come in and become legal and permanent residents, and the Republicans don't? Because the shoe should be on the other foot. generally speaking, the Democrats that are on the side of the labor and labor unions are against immigration. Why? Because these people come in and take the jobs from me and reduce the level of wages because they work for so little. And yet, it's Democratic Party that is always in support of the labor unions. And yet, on the other hand, you have Republicans that are on the side of the corporations and so forth. And corporations love to have immigrants coming in and working for cheaps. So why is it the other way around then? It is a matter of elections. That is the point. Not what these people do as labor, but rather how would they vote? How would they vote? Democrats have become convinced that the immigrants, particularly illegal immigrants that become legalized eventually, they vote Democratic. Those who enter the country legally, they split in the middle basically, half Republican, half Democrat, more or less. All right, depending where you come from. If you come from Cuba, you definitely would vote Republican. If you are from Mexico, most likely you would vote Democratic. I remember personally, I saw this because I became a citizen of the United States. This was like late 1980s. My late wife and myself, we actually showed up for taking the oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, became a citizen. And as we were walking out, there were ladies from the League of Women's Voters, wonderful ladies, pretty old, but in those days, of course, to me, everybody was pretty old. Uh, we went there and they said, here, come here, we register you so that you would vote. And it was wonderful. My God, now we can vote. They would register us as the registered voters. They automatically registered every one of us as Democrat. They didn't even ask. Everybody's Democrat. And when I saw that, I said, like, you didn't ask me what party I want. You just registered me as Democrat. And she said, well, Democrats defend you, defend all the immigrants and whatnot. I said, look, I'm a legal immigrant. At least give me the right. I came from a place where nobody asked for my opinion, and now you just register me automatically for Democrats. And she says, okay, I register you for Republican. I don't want to be Republican. I want to be independent. I have that right until I decide I would like to be independent. They automatically register me for Democrat. That is what it is. That is, both sides are afraid of the voting power of these individuals. That is why those states and localities that they are democratic control, they want these people to be protected naturally. And the Republicans naturally are against them. It has become totally party politics, has nothing to do anymore with what you call immigration or anything else. Some places like here in North Carolina, people have gone bananas altogether. This city in the state that votes Republican largely has decided to make the city sanctuary by calling itself the Fourth Amendment workplace, meaning like everybody has the right to work and nobody should enter their house and home. This is the Fourth Amendment. The right of the people to be secure in their person, houses, papers, effects, and stuff should not be violated. That is true. But that is for the citizens of the United States, not for illegal immigrants. Apparently, these individuals don't know the difference between them. Why? Nobody really knows much about legalities and constitutionalities of affairs in the United States. All right. If I may move forward very quickly, the law enforcement side of the equation we are talking about, there are several levels, if I may point at. These are the ones that they are not there all the time at the state level. One is called posse, what we used to call Minutemen during the American Revolution. These are the individuals, average people recruited by the local sheriff or local marshal, armed if they don't have arms of their own, a gun of their own, and they are used, average people, citizens, to put down ordinary felonies if the local police is not powerful enough. The second one is called National Guard, what we used to call militia during the American Revolutionary time. The militia, it is paramilitary. It is not full military and it's not full civilians either. These are under the control of the state government and the governor of the state, not the federal government. National Guard, although it's called national, it really is a state affairs. However, they can be federalized, as we're going to be seeing. Military, on the other hand, is under the direct administration of the federal government. So what do they do? While this one is to put down ordinary felonies if necessary, if the police cannot do it, then you call posse and arm them, average citizens, to do that. National Guard is to put down riots and the natural disasters, to help with natural disasters like hurricanes and things like that, or fires. What is a riot? Well, you have to compare that to insurrection and rebellions. Military is used to put down insurrections and rebellions. What's the difference between them? Riot is spontaneous. People just lose it and start using violence, setting shops on fire, and things like that. It is not organized and it doesn't last very long. That's a riot. Insurrection and rebellion, they are actually organized. Insurrection is in a small area and a small group of people. Rebellion is a large area, or could be even, half of the country, such as the Civil War in the United States. We call them the rebels because it would fall under the definition of rebellion in the Constitution of the United States. These are the three sections, and we see how we're going to use these. Article 1, Section 8 of the enumerated powers that Congress of the United States has according to the Constitution. Clause 15 tells you one of the rights that the Constitution has is to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. So Congress has the right to actually call forth either the military or the National Guard in order to put down insurrections, rebellions, or invasions. If it is that, that is why the sanctuary cities and individuals should not cross that very narrow line. If they are just demonstrating, it is okay. Once they cross the line and it becomes riot, the National Guard can be called in. If it becomes organized, then it would be insurrection and rebellion. Then the military can be called in. It is good to know not to cross that fine line. Meanwhile, Article 2, Section 4, Clause 5 gives the president shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. What does that mean? Present administration. It says, I'm doing these things because I am given the duty to make sure the laws of the United States are executed. Which law are we talking about? Immigration laws. Those are the laws made by Congress. So I sent people to go into the cities and go to the jails, arrest people, go to their homes and stuff like that. I have given the right, the president would say, by Article 2, Section 4, Clause 5 of the Constitution, that I should take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Okay? They are not. The state refused to do it. Then I do it as a federal government. I am using Article 2 of the Constitution, would say. Those of you who don't know any better, because we stopped actually teaching political science at NYIT, so I'm very glad that the dean actually asked me to come and speak about these things. Government of the United States divides into three equal branches: lawmaking, Congress; law enforcing, the White House and the president; and law judging. It's all about laws. That is your judicial branch. All right. So the laws about immigration all have been passed by Congress, given to the president to execute. Constitution tells the president, do whatever you want in order to carry out your duties, namely to enforce the laws. But if you overstep, then the judges, local judges, can issue injunctions, meaning like you are breaking the law. So it goes to the Supreme Court of the United States to decide, did you overstep your authority or did you not? And they are swamped with cases like that to do that, all right? Meanwhile, of course, this is called the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution. United States for the first 13 years was a confederation, meaning was like European Union. There was no federal law. There was no federal government. In 1789, when the new constitution was passed, the one that we have today, it actually created a central government, a federal government, and gave the federal government a lot of power, but also made all the local laws subservient to the federal laws. Federal law is supreme. That's why it's called the supremacy clause. Yeah, read it, just a colored one. Authority of the United States shall be supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or law of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding, doesn't matter what your law, local law says, the federal law is supreme. The states have not broken that. They said at no places I have to enforce it. I don't do it. You do it yourself. So they are not breaking any part of the Constitution, either side, either the government or the states. All right. What we had originally, it was a lot of latitude for the states to operate the way they wanted. From the 19th century all the way to 1930s, it was called dual federalism, which basically meant that states practiced their own laws. In fact, we had a case, came to the Supreme Court. A newspaper in Missouri had been limited by the state law to not to publish certain things, and they said we have the right under the First Amendment of the Constitution, the freedom of press. And the Supreme Court says only if you are a federal paper, but you are not. You are a paper published only and distributed in Missouri. Therefore, you have to obey the laws of Missouri. Meaning, even the Bill of Rights did not apply to people. That changed in 1930s, all the way to 1980. That is the New Deal under President FDR and the others. It is called field preemption, meaning if the Congress makes a law in a specific field, everybody has to obey it, including the states, such as minimum wage, maximum number of hours you work, workman compensation, and immigration laws. They supersede in that field. But since 1980s and coming into power of Reagan administration, which of course being Republican, he believes the power should be devolved to the states, not to be put in the capital city. The presumption against preemption came into power, namely, it does not automatically, the federal laws do not supersede local laws unless the Supreme Court decides that was the intent of the law. So what it is, I am flabbergasted personally because this president says I am a Republican, and yet he's doing things that are very anti-Republican. Why? Republicans believe the power should be given to the states, not to the federal government. Going back all the way to George Washington himself, when he tried to put down the Whiskey Rebellion in Western Pennsylvania, called on the military. Thankfully, it didn't get to bloodshed or anything else. But he showed one thing, that national government has the will and the constitutional right to suppress violent resistance to the laws. What if the resistance is not violent? Then you don't have the right. Then you don't have the right. So for example, here it was the Democratic Congress in 2021, January 6th, called the American military from Fort Myers. Fort Myers is just south of Arlington, pretty much in the metropolitan Washington, D.C. For the military to actually come and save the Congress, because many of these people were armed and they were not acting like rioters, but more like insurrectionists. That was the decision, that this is an insurrection. Congress actually asked the military to come and save them, not the National Guard, not the local police. So this is not a new thing. As recently as 2021, the military was asked to come and enforce the laws of the United States in Congress itself. And it did. And it did, which is kind of like bizarre, if I may say that, which is really strange on that way, if I may go forward. The posse comitatus, of course, it is something that can be discussed, but I'm running out of time, so I should not explain this in great detail, but rather just put it up and tell you that you can go to the slides that I have and read for yourself the historical background of these that I have put in there, a whole number of them actually. One thing that I need to mention before ending is the ability of the federal government to federalize local law enforcement, including National Guard that is under the jurisdiction of the state governor. If president wishes, president is the head of the executive branch of the federal government, he can federalize it, meaning they have to take orders from the United States president, not the state governor. In fact, they may be ordered to arrest the state governor. They can do that. National Guard opening fire on campuses. This is, of course, in 1970 on the Kent State University in Ohio, where they killed 4 students. All right. Were they put on trial? No. Then, of course, in Jackson State University, shortly after this, Jackson, Mississippi, they killed 2 students. That is when the local National Guards are federalized and are given a chance that the students have become riotous and they have taken over the campus. So you go in there and use firearms. If they have become riotous and they are using weapons, and including rocks, if they throw rocks, that is a weapon. You don't need to have like weapons, I mean, guns or anything else. You could be shot at. You could be killed, as a matter of fact. All right. So here it is, of course, enforcement of various laws and regulations, and including natural disasters by the whatchamacallit, the National Guard. The last thing is that, as I said, the National Guard can be federalized and actually a state governor to be arrested if he uses violence against the national forces. In this case, George Wallace is standing in front of the building to prevent black students getting into the building. This is the time of desegregation. President Kennedy not only sent this gentleman to declare to the National Guard that they are now federalized, don't obey this guy, the governor, and if he does not step aside, he will be arrested. In fact, President Kennedy asked the military at Fort Bennings to be ready to invade the state and take it over to force desegregation. On that note, I should stop. And if you have any questions, please ask me. I'm in no rush to go anywhere. You're more than welcome to stay and ask me whatever you wish.
All right. So thank you so much, Michael. That's great. It's great hearing from political science. As you mentioned, we're the only one left on at MIIT. So we'll open up to questions. And if you don't mind, I would like to maybe put one to start. You mentioned it briefly about the word alien. We don't really use that word. We don't want to use it in a derogatory way. But from what I understand, the word alien actually means one who sells himself. I'm wondering how it came to mean like and it came to be used in the immigration sense, right? Because a lien is something you put on a house, right? And it seems to be it's the same word. I'm wondering what the etymology of it is in terms of immigration.
We have been using that in America since the 1700s. In 1790s, we used the laws that were created by Congress that refer to foreigners as aliens. Alien Enemy Act, for example, of 1790s, that later on, of course, was transferred into the 20th century. The name was used, it had not a derogatory meaning at that time. It simply meant foreigner, but it has become derogatory. In fact, now it actually is misleading. It means like something like from outer space altogether, aliens from another planet. Things changed. We have names. Like, for example, we use the name gender today. When I was young, we used the name sex. Sex meant gender. Today, sex is an act rather than a person or the type of a person. So vocabulary changes all the time. So I adjusted the best I could do. Uh, Alien means that which is not you, like self-alienation. You become foreigner to yourself.
Before it meant foreigner to the country in a way, right? For it was
In a
alien
way,
with
you're
respect.
fine.
I see.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
you're not a
Thank you.
local
Yeah,
type of.
that makes sense. Okay. Do you have anyone else on the from the audience on Zoom on any of the on the Manhattan campus either or in this room? All right. Well, anyway, so thanks so much, Michael. That was a great talk. Very informative. Very topical as well. We're glad you gave us your time today. We're all glad that you were in the audience for spending time with us, spending your afternoon with us. I know we're very busy. Please join us again in a couple weeks. I believe we have Professor Sophia Domokos from the Department of Physics who will tell us about the black holes inside of atoms. So very exciting. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.